Well, good morning, everyone. I'm glad everybody is showing up. It looks like we got a lot of folks here today, and we might actually run out of space, which would be awesome because we have 100 max. Always like to see and have folks here. There's a question already. The question is, will we be having these slides or posting these slides? Yes, we'll give you access to these slides. We'll send out a follow-up with these for everybody here. So we will absolutely do that, and we'll get right into it. I'm Dave Lowe. I'm the CEO of isiFederal, and we're located here in the Baltimore area, Baltimore, Washington area. I don't know if Carl's going to be able to make it today. He has a whole bunch of things. It's a busy time of year, as you know. Carl is with CapturePlanning.com and Prop Library. If you haven't been there, go there. There's a lot of great free stuff there for you to be able to follow your proposal, all your proposal processes, and be able to help out with proposals. And Jamie Zell may be with us today. Let's see who's here today so far. Nope, Jamie's not here yet either. So I know things are crazy busy. He works with GSAProposal.com in managing and working with the GSA process and proposals. The numbers that matter most, if you all know anything about these numbers, you can text or chat them into the box or send me a question. If you know what those numbers are, we're going to be reviewing these numbers in just a moment. 41 and 406 are the most important numbers of your life. If you have any questions, in fact, to be able to get that to me, there's the ability to chat down in the bottom side of your panel, and you can also send questions, which is great. And the biggest thing, though, is enter your audio pin so we can unmute you and we can have dialogue. So if there's any questions that you would like to have answered, or you have some insight on some things that are happening in your world that you'd like to share with everybody else, we'd love to hear from you. We can't have it open for everybody because it would be total mayhem and feedback craziness, so I can't do that. But what we can do is we can have individual dialogue. So quick poll, how much federal business do you do annually? And I'm going to open this up, and maybe this is going to work. Let's see if I can get these polls to actually work. Select the poll, and there it is right there. So we're going to launch this poll. And let's see, did that pop up? Did you guys get that?
Yep, it looks good, Dave.
Poll? Okay, good. Jamie's here. How you doing, Jamie? Good to see you.
Doing good.
And so that poll has actually popped up, right?
Yeah, it came right up.
Okay, so people are filling it. It must be working because people are filling it in. And while that is going, I'm gonna let this go for just a little bit, and maybe another 15 seconds. So go ahead and fill that in for us. And it looks like we're at. Let's see. We'll get there in just a minute. It'll be this is a good litmus of who's around here that are working. Another 10 seconds, and we'll get this closed out. How you doing, Jamie, out there in Ohio?
Doing good, Dave. Your audio's chopping just a little bit. I don't know if you can shift your antenna just a little bit, but the audio, as I'm listening to your audio, is chopping just a teeny bit.
Oh man, I don't know how to. I don't know if I can. I can't figure that out.
It's relatively good overall. I just didn't know. I thought I'd bring it up, but things are good on this end.
I appreciate it.
We're
okay,
back to
cool.
summer again.
All right, I'm going to close this down. Not everybody's asking these questions here, but we're going to. What we have, I'll share this with everybody. I think you can see it. Let's see what you see. Can you see that? All right, there's your poll where almost everybody today is less than $1 million, which is great because that's probably why everybody's here. is because we have less than that. Let's see if I can. How do I do this real quick? I'm sorry. I'm new to this poll idea. Okay. So the reason why we're here, Driving GSA, this is dedicated for GSA schedule holders. So we appreciate the fact that you are already in the process of that. And we're trying to help identify obstacles to your success, gaining some exposure out there in the federal marketplace, giving you some insider information and access to resources like Jamie, like me, like Carl, and others. We'll pull other people in from time to time, but that's who generally is here. A little bit about the sponsors here. We do business development into the federal space. We provide intelligence to get you smart about the marketplace. We provide marketing services. We assist in the grunt work, and we can also manage your team to make sure that they're doing the right things the right way. We provide dedicated representation specifically here in the DC, greater DC area. And that includes feet on the street, knocking on doors, representation, physical representation, walking in with you, leading with your company into the federal space. Capture planning, as I mentioned before, captureplanning.com is all about the proposal side. While we're in the go out and grab the stuff, capture planning and capture management and all the components for being able to capture that business. Carl does a great job in helping out with that. I don't think he's here yet, but go visit Prop Library and see what he has there, because there's some really good things. And I'll just skip that for now. And then we have GSAproposal.com. Jamie, say hello and tell us about what you guys do.
Hello, Dave. Well, at GSAproposal.com, our first mission is helping clients get their GSA schedule, and then as they go through the life cycle of their GSA schedule itself, which the initial term is 5 years, and then it's renewable in 5-year increments. And as a client goes through the life cycle of their schedule, they oftentimes want to make changes to their schedule, additions, deletions, adding new services, adding products, getting rid of old products. And as you need to make adjustments to your GSA schedule, we're there for the schedule revision process to make sure your schedule is tuned properly and up to date and correct the way that you want it to be. And also, as other clients grow into new areas and need additional new schedules, we help with that as well.
And I can't tell you how important it is, especially this time of year, to have your schedule in sync with what the market's doing. And it's, you know, sometimes it takes a little bit longer depending on your contracting officer, but you've got to get your schedule in line with what you have. And we're fielding a whole lot of things right now where some of our clients don't have their pieces on there. So, and Jamie does a great job with his team to be able to do that. So we highly recommend that you reach out to Jamie and their folks. So why are you all here today? This webinar would be the best ever if it increased my exposure to the government. Well, that's great. We're actually going to be working through that as part of this process. And then Lestelle said it addressed in detail how small businesses should market. Great. We're going to be dealing with that as well. Lena, my sales increased as a result of something I learned and implemented. Hopefully that's the case. And finally, from Kenneth, identify prospects for 2013. Now these are very typical of what happens in the marketplace, and in fact where the bulk of everybody is. I don't know if everybody answered the poll, but this is typical for GSA schedule holders, because guess what? Most are going to fail. And I hate to tell you this, but chances are some of you are on the bubble right now because of that. And you're not alone. 80% of the GSA schedule holders out there will lose their schedule. 50% won't book a dime, and the other 30% won't reach their $25,000 minimum. And the GSA is cracking down on this, and I know there's folks out there that are exactly in this position. And if you haven't been doing certain things, you're in trouble, because it takes a while to be able to get there. And this doesn't just include you, as a matter of fact. This includes all of the other set-aside components, 8A, service disabled, women-owned. 5,000 of 9,000 8As won't book a dime. And so this is an epidemic. It's not just you with GSA stuff. It's not just folks that are just jumping into the federal government and don't understand, but this is all of the folks that are there. Most 8As will graduate and disappear, even after they have booked good business, because they don't have a succession plan to get out of that and graduate out of your 8A program. So why is this? What is happening out there that creates this dynamic? First of all, the federal government is wired against newcomers, and if you're new into the space, that's you. And if you're new into a different part of the federal government, that's you. So it's wired against you, and it is complicated. It isn't your average thing where, you know, I'm in sales. I like to walk in and say, here you go, you like me? Great, let's sign the paper, let's be done. Boom, we're done. Doesn't work like that in the federal government. It requires a lot of effort and a lot of push, and there are a lot of rules. There's a lot of red tape, as you know. It is a different kind of market. It is not your typical commercial marketplace. The system itself is counterintuitive to the progress of anything. The federal government is just like this. It's counterintuitive. They inject things that create a non-sales environment, like SBA. if you're dealing with your SBA liaison, when was the last time you sold anything low on the totem pole and worked your way up? That's their process. Working low on the totem pole, work your way up. OSDBOs or OSBOs, same type of scenario. These are the places where they have the system in place to try to assist you to find the buyers. The problem is they don't make decisions. They don't have any budget. They have no way to be able to say yes. They can only say no, in which case it's just like a big gatekeeper organization, and you don't have the ability to be able to penetrate that market. The fact of the matter is that they're piping you to FedBizOps, right? If you're talking to these, oh, you're going to watch FedBizOps, only 6% of the total opportunities hit FedBizOps. 75% are already baked for somebody else. And they're generally larger opportunities. $25,000 and up, right? If anything is below $25,000, it doesn't hit. Now, you might only work on $25,000 and up, but they don't all hit there either. Why is that? It's because not all opportunities are posted on FedBizOps. And you know this if you're GSA because you're probably monitoring GSA eBuy. GSA eBuy stuff's not hitting FedBizOps. Why? Because that's a sidetrack. And there's other sidetracks to be able to access and gain access into the federal space. So that only leaves 1.2% of the total market for your products and services. Now, you're a subsegment, a sub-subsegment of the total marketplace. So 1.2% of the total market, still a lot of money, by the way. It's like $500 billion. So 1.2%, it's over $5 billion. So it's not like it's chump change. But the problem is that if it's driving this way, the ultimate piece with the opportunities that are posting to FedBizOps is the default is price. And the fact is, if you have 50 different people that are bidding and you win, you probably lose because you either missed something or you just went in at a super low price and you really don't have any profit margin. That's not the objective of what we're doing here. The objective here is to try to get into the federal space where you can make your decent margins. You can't just book everything at 300% or anything like that, but you can certainly be able to not play the price game. The cold hard truth about this is federal business development is hard work. It takes a long time, and it's expensive. There's no quick, easy. If it's quick, easy, and cheap, everybody be able to do it. And you can see that not everybody can do it, and you might be in a position where you're not successful. It's not working for you, and you're trying to figure out why is that. And the fact of the matter is it takes a long time. A real quick poll on what you guys wind up spending in a given year. Hang on one second, and I will get to that question. I'll even answer it. Let me see what my quick poll. All right, this does have to do with what you're spending. I just want to make sure I was going the right way. I'm willing to spend. How much are you willing to spend in your federal pursuit? Is the real question right now. And if it less than 50K. 50 to 100, whatever it happens to be. Just pick one of those and let me know what those are, because we're going to be sharing this information specifically for this. And we do have a real quick question. Will you be offering the side presentation for download? Yes, we will, Andy. We will certainly be doing that. In fact, that was the same question that someone else did. So we'll absolutely get that to you. So real quick, is everybody getting this poll? Let's see what's happening here. All right, we're starting to come in. Excellent, excellent. Thank you very much. And the objective of this is just to get a litmus test of whether you should really be in the federal marketplace or not. Because I'm going to tell you, it's not fast, it's not easy, and it's not cheap. So just making sure that everybody's here. All right, let's see what we can do about this here. All right, give you another couple of seconds. Are you seeing that, Jamie? Everything working there?
Yeah, it looks good.
All right,
looks still good.
I'm still working my way through this. We're going to close this in just a minute. Got some real even numbers here. Let's see what we got. All right, we'll close this, and we're going to share that with everybody. So 60% are spending less than $25,000. 30% are 50 to, less than 50. 50 to 75,000, and then there's a few that are spending 100,000 to 125,000 per year. And this is a fact. If you're not willing to invest the appropriate time and resources, and that's dollars and time, If you're not willing to do that, you need to stop. Just stop. Because I don't want you to keep spending money to go after something that if you do it halfway, you lose everything. And we see it time and time again that this is the case. In fact, what we're going to do, I'm going to share this with you. Successful federal contractors that sell more than $2.5 million annually invest approximately $150,000 per year for the first 2 years to get over the hump. And we have a budget resources worksheet that we'll share with everybody. I'll shoot this out as a follow-up. So we'll make sure we get this to you. And this is just overall, so that you can fill out. You can see it's generally 40 to 60 hours a week is how much time it takes to be able to do that. Now, some of that's administrative, and some of that's very specialized. So you need to have a mix of all these pieces, and it's all broken down there. So we'll be able to share that with you. Fair enough. Can you see my screen, everybody? Make sure audience view sees. See that? I'm going on and I'm talking about things and it's showing the poll. All right, so we're hiding that poll now. All right. So if you are willing to invest the appropriate time and resources, you can grow your federal business. Now, why is this? Because it's a big flipping freaking market. It's $425 billion. It's somewhere between 425 and 500, but I'd go on the low side. But this means that $119 billion is set aside for small businesses. And most of the folks here, small businesses, I can tell by your investment strategy in your federal government. I can tell that almost everybody here, everybody that's answering is a small business, I can tell you that. So the fact is, though, the Fed is buying everything, local all the way, from local all the way around the world. There's 85,000 buyers in all these agencies. They are the #1 customer in the world, and $119 billion is set aside for that. The number that matters most, as we mentioned earlier, there's 2 of them. 41 is the deadline until September 30th, 2013, and 406 is the deadline until 2014, September 30th. Anybody have a guess as to when the last contract will be posted to this year's federal budget? Anybody have an idea? You can chat it in down the side, or you can give a question. And I'll, if I don't see anybody answer that question, I'll answer it for myself. But I can tell you, this is an amazing thing. What happens this time of year? Let's see here. Hold on. Let's see. September 1. It's actually September 30th, but it's really, in most instances, I'll tell you, it's let's see if anybody else has any guesses. You can chat it in down there, show in the questions. Let's see if anybody chatted. Nobody's chatted it in. Okay, I'll tell you. The last contract will be executed at 11:59 Hawaiian time. Now, I have heard Guam, so, but Hawaiian time is the last one that I've seen laid in there. Last year, we had several dozen contracts come in the last several hours of September 30th. So that's the timing when things will happen. I'm not going to ask that as far as the poll. Why is this? What happens in September, and why is this the case for everything that's happened here? Contracts spike incredibly, depending on your industry, but almost all industries. There's a couple that are out there that don't operate this way, but almost every industry looks like this. Every one of these peaks right here are September, and some of those are happening starting in August. So there's a peak in August, and then it really spikes in September. Now, what about this year? Because we have the S word out there, right? We have sequestration that's happened. So here's what's happened in the past year. From October to May, just continue operations, couple emergency components and things like that. Mostly things to just keep things running. So all the new contracts, some of them were suspended, some of them were postponed, some of them were canceled out altogether. They just stopped. Some of the IDIQs that were awarded were just not funded ever. So we saw that happening in June, July. Some of the spending on existing contracts were released, then July through September, they have the need to spend every dime. So think about this. If they took a 10% hit in their budget or whatever it happened to be, and they didn't, but let's just assume they did. So for the first several months of the year, and I say several, we're talking about from October to July, they were very restrictive in their spending. That left an incredible amount of money in the pot and the need to spend every dime by September 30th. And guess what? What's left is about $70 billion. And I don't know about you, but that's a B. That's a lot. $72 billion. So when you think about what's happening and if you've been watching GSA buy, you know this is happening. You know, because all of a sudden, instead of having just a couple of drip drop, things happening on GSA buy, you're getting, something like 50, 60 responses, sometimes 100 a day that you have to take a look at. Again, and none of them are hitting FedBiz up, so it's really, really cool. So now, this is the last 41 days. Now, in order to get to this $72 billion, we have to go back. We have to go check on what we've been doing this year. You've had to understand your market. You've had to have preparation. You have to have your capabilities in place. Your contract vehicles are obviously up to date as well. You're having sample scopes of work that you've been sending out to people. You've been performing introductory calls and follow-up calls. You've been performing executive briefings with the folks that are on the project management side, and you've been having procurement briefings for the folks on the contracting side. Some of these are going to be mass-oriented, and some of them are going to be one-on-one. And we'll talk about specifically some of these. We're going to talk about procurement briefings in a little bit. But if this is what you have had to be doing in order to be gaining access to this. And think about what's happened. Going back to what happened before, if 80% or 90%, if you figure all the people that are jumping in that don't even have GSA schedules are going to fail, that eliminates 90% of your competition right now if you're doing things right. If you've been doing those things, you've eliminated 90% of your competition because they're not doing these things. They don't even know to do these things because they don't know who they're talking to. They don't know what they're doing. So this eliminates 90% of those competitors for that remaining $119 billion that's left for small businesses. So the question is, have you been doing these things since October of last year? Because if you haven't, guess what? It's too late. You don't have a chance at September spending this year if you haven't been doing all these things to prep for what's happening in September. Because fundamentally, you need a proactive strategy to be able to get to that place. The chances are you're here because you really don't have a proactive strategy. Certainly not a proactive strategy that's going to work and not going after the small business thing. It's got to hit your sweet spot. And what we mean by sweet spot is what falls within your regular core offerings that are relevant to the federal buyers. And beyond that, you have to have a proactive pursuit. You need to have your strategy to say, okay, this is what my market looks like. This is how I have to operate. Now I'm going to dedicate my people to go after this pursuit. Before we can pursue anybody, we got to think about who we're pursuing. And my thing always revolves around who we are going after. And the fact of the matter is 3 people that are primary players. Sometimes it's only 2. Sometimes if it's quoting, it's only 1 because you're getting quotes. And if you're doing commodity buys off the GSA buy, you need a strategy for that alone. But we're not going to talk about that today. We're going to be talking about generally what happens in products and services in selling to the government. We call these decision clusters. These key decision clusters have 3 people that are bound together by a particular opportunity. It's a project that's good for you. What's important to know is every one of these folks have different roles, different needs, different buying motives, and different reasons for making decisions. And if you're pitching them all the same way, you're missing somebody because somebody's not going to care about how you're pitching them. So you have to change the way that you approach your marketplace depending on who you're talking to. So with this, I'm going to do a quick overview of these folks. The PMs, the project managers, the program managers, their job is all about the initiatives that are being driven down on their head. This could be coming from the president himself, all the way down through executive orders and memorandums. These are coming down through the pipeline. There could be green initiatives, cloud computing, security, huge, hot right now. Cost cutting, cost savings, obviously important for those. Even though there's a double-edged sword around that, because if they save the money, they can't spend it someplace else, and then they lose budget, which means they lose power. So you got to watch that. Some of these are politically motivated. Healthcare, huge right now, right? So these folks are not that they're cutting edge, but they do look for new ideas. They're influenceable. These are the people that we've been feeding our scope to, our scopes of work, our samples of how we go about our business. And they help to develop the requirements which can incorporate our certifications and capabilities so that they can kind of narrow the field and use us if they like us, right? Their job is to get the job done right, and your job is to tie in with the initiatives that are coming down the pipe and to help them look good so that they look good in line with those initiatives. Not real complicated, but you need to know what those agencies' missions are in order for you to do that. So understand the missions of the agencies and understand how you can help them look good to their superiors. The next person is the technical representative, and this person really kind of makes the tie between your program and your contracting side. We'll talk about contracting in a minute. So here, these folks are busy. They usually report to the PM. They're risk averse because they're lower in the food chain generally. They assist in assembling these requirements, and they can be looking at government standards and similar purchases and all the kind of things like that. They're also looking for certifications. What are the certifications that we should be looking at? You know, ISO or CMML or the other different certifications. Some of these could be private or certifications too. So it's not necessarily these big WSMO things, but you can drive your certifications right into the scope of the work and the requirements. So they assist in the requirements. Your job, help them with the requirements and help them look good. Another fundamental human component. Then we have the contracting officers. These folks are busy, and I'm telling you, they're busy. Right now, they're busy. They're shooting stuff out. They're overloaded. A lot of the folks were affected by a sequestration. And so, you know, the last day off for the DOD folks was last Friday. Now they're all there for the rest of the year, which is good because it definitely affected their pocketbooks. So have a little heart on them because they took a 20% pay cut for the past couple of months. A lot of us couldn't handle that for sure. So look at this. They're busy, or at least think they are anyway. They will not teach you how to do business with them. They are risk averse for sure because they don't like new things. They're experts in moving paper. Now, this is not to diminish their role, but you better understand that their job is to move paper and not know how great you are at everything that you do. In fact, they don't really care what you do. They really don't even care you can get into the nuts and bolts and how great you are. They don't really care. What they care is, help me with this procurement. How can you get this thing off my desk? And what's the fastest way to be able to purchase this sucker? And if you can provide them with the fastest way, maybe give them a choice of two. Maybe you have a GSA schedule, maybe you have 8A. Give them a choice. Maybe you're a woman-owned small business, and there's some restrictions that removed from a women-owned small business now. So there's good stuff happening here. And with the fastest way to purchase, and here's your job. Easy, 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 and make them feel valued. Now this is a core human component, where if you can get to somebody that, hey, they're getting dumped on every day, getting dumped on. They're dealing with the internal politics. I couldn't do that job. First of all, I couldn't handle the paperwork. I'd screw it up royally all the time. So think about what they're up against with what they need to procure and the pressures that they have internally and start to frame it in their world. And remember, they control millions of dollars on what you sell. They control it. They're the ones because they can develop the contract documents and select the purchasing mechanisms that can favor you. So make them feel valued. We're going to be talking about that a little bit. Any questions about these folks and where they are in the food chain and how they operate? Any questions about them? If you have any, go ahead and pop them in here. Let's see, real quick. How do you find these people? Great question. I will get to that in a little bit. Thank you for that, Mark. I appreciate it. We will talk about that in just a minute. Any other questions before we move on to this next spot? Okay. Your proactive pursuit. This is what you should have been doing all year. I'm making the assumptions that most people haven't, but I'm not just going to smack you on the head. I'm going to tell you what you need to be doing so that you're setting yourself up for next year. Okay? First of all, if you've been doing this, capabilities recap. We went through this a couple months ago. Your capability statement is your company resume. It's a one-page slick. It has all the contact information. Don't miss out on being able to have specific people as provide your contact information too. Contact. Jeez, can't even talk. All right, so you're talking about having your name on there so that they're, because do they build relationships with companies or do they build relationships with people? People. People are the key. Your job is to build a relationship with a person, not with an agency, not with a sub-agency, not with a branch, not with any of that. Your job is to build a relationship with an individual. So, therefore, make sure everything funnels back to one person that's responsible for dealing with that person. The idea, building that relationship, solidifying that relationship so that when something comes down the pipe, they remember who you are, right? So contract information, your GSA schedule, obviously, business side certification, all your set-aside components, 8A if you have any of those pieces, service disabled, all that, past performance gets plugged in here, your core competencies, and make it customizable to your target so that you can address your prospect nuances. So you can just send out a general one, but if you're targeting an agency where you're doing specific environmental services, or you're doing specific IT components, or maybe you're doing commodity buys with IT, or commodity buys in some other fashion. Whatever those things are, tailor it to the person that you're presenting it to. If they're on the environmental side, you don't need to talk about a whole bunch of other nonsense. Talk about environmental issues. If you're talking about facilities, talk about facilities. If you're talking about IT, make sure that you're honing in on specific IT components that are relevant to these people. Make sense? So the other piece is sample scopes of work. You have the ability to be able to provide this. Did you know that? You can supply them with sample scopes of work, even whether they ask or not. You can still do it. Your sample scopes of work, and we did this a couple of months ago, is we looked at your key differentiators. What separates you from your competitors? Your certifications, all those different certificates that you have that are on the wall, make sure that they're incorporated. Make sure that you have a bunch of great resumes, make sure they're put in there, right? The experience of your team, the number of experienced personnel. Sometimes you'll see pieces where you'll see scopes of work and you'll see opportunities where it says you need to have 10 of these type people. How do you think that got in there? It got in there because somebody's influencing the scope. And if it wasn't you, it's your competitors. That's rule. It's not rule number one. Rule number two is, hey, if you didn't influence the scope, somebody else did. And think about it that way, as opposed to somebody's just coming up with some willy-nilly opportunity. If it's being put out, chances are somebody else is helping to craft that. And this can include past performance, the size of projects, similar scopes, number of projects, and other agencies that you're doing business with if you have it. If not, don't worry about it, but make sure you have those pieces. Okay, I do have a question from James. Hang on a second, James. Let me read this. Suggest that you talk about the GSA Advantage meetings at local base and the geographic area and expertise in base newspaper to get your solutions in front of the customer. Jim, that's great advice. There are always meetings, individual meetings, within various agencies where you can be part. The challenge that I have with some of these, let me see if I can unmute you there, James. Hang on one second. Where are you? Where's my? Give me 1 second. Give me a break. What's going on here? Hang on a second. Pay no attention to the man behind the curtain. Let's see, where's James? James, you there?
Yes, sir.
How are you doing? Jim, tell us about first of all, who are you with, Jim?
I'm with AeroSafe Products. We sell maintenance products to all of the services. We have approximately 67 items that have national stock numbers, and we work tirelessly with the various personnel specifically to ensure that tech orders, tech manuals are updated to put our products, the national stock number, and of course the GSA Advantage location actually in the tech manuals, so that.
Oh, I got you. Great move. That's a great move, Jim.
If the customer doesn't know how to find you, then you shouldn't probably be talking to that customer because he's untrainable. But seriously, what you need to do is you need to work with those individuals. More importantly, you probably need to hire some people that have done this work before who probably have retired from the government. My suggestion to you is make sure if you're going to hire somebody that they've actually worked with GSA. And the reason is, I can tell you just as equally that a number of comptrollers in the military absolutely do not want to work through GSA for one simple reason. They can't pull the money back, and it's at the end of the year, and we've got a war going on. So if you do that, trust me, they're going to suck up as much money as they can by the end of the year to pay bills.
They certainly will. And I think there's a lot of salient advice that Jim has there. First of all, people that understand whatever agency it is. And I do agree with you because a retired person from the military, especially like a colonel, you don't need the general necessarily, right? But being able to have folks that are part of that chain so that you can gain access to the base. They can still gain access to the base and everything can work. So very good advice on that. And the GSA component is a challenge. In fact, there's a lot of competition for GSA. I'm going to mute you here, James, because it's giving me some feedback. So there's a lot of competition with NASA Soup and HHS and other vehicles that are being put out there for specifically different industries. But there's a lot of competition out there for GSA, and some folks, we talk to them all the time. We're talking to contracting officers and procurement people and heads of procurement, and some of them some shy away from GSA because they don't move fast enough, or there's other limitations. So great advice, though. The real advice is making sure that you're working the contacts to get your information, as Jim mentioned, the NSNs, getting your NSNs in there if you have products, and pointing them to GSA Advantage. Did you know that you can put in any of your literature, you can get a GSA Advantage link, and it'll go right to your GSA stuff. You have to hide the information, but it'll go right to your GSA stuff, where they can search for a particular product within your GSA schedule and be able to provide that. So great advice from Jim. That's what I love about these, because you never know what folks are going to say. Absolutely good information. So another part of the recap that we're going to talk about is your key performance indicators. And this is a great thing that funnels right into what Jim said, is in order to be able to figure out whether or not you're hiring somebody that really has juice. Because if they were a jerk when they were in the government, then they're going to be a jerk when they get out of the government, and people aren't going to do business with them. So being able to understand whether or not you're riding the right horse and making sure that the people that you have on your team are really respected and can maneuver within the agencies and sub-agencies. If it happens to be DOD, absolutely, incorporating some of those pieces. So the key performance indicators is you can't manage what you can't measure, and it's really hard to be able to measure when you're not seeing revenue come in. And for a good while, you're going to be up against this because it takes time to be able to develop those relationships. You think about what Jim just said. You got to get in front of the people, so then they incorporate that into their technical manuals, which doesn't happen overnight by any stretch, and then be able to educate the people that that's actually in the manual. So you're going through an education process that can take years, at least months, if not years, so to be able to do that. But you have to be able to measure these pieces, and there's key performance indicators that we have with SMART goals that we look at, and we recommend just following the SMART goals. You haven't heard this term? Specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. Making sure that you're being able to see all these things within the operations of your pursuit process, and having a good CRM so that you can track these and report on it to say how many calls were made. Because the key to business development here, as Jim was saying, and I completely agree, is people buy from people they like. It doesn't change in the federal government. It doesn't change outside the federal government. People buy from people they like. So your job is easy, at least in theory, is get them to know you. They can't like you if they don't know you, and get them to like you. Get them to know and get them to like you. Because they already have relationships in most instances. So you're going to try to displace those relationships. So it's important to be able to do those things. Again, getting to a place where you're influencing the scope, or you look at your pipeline management, you can measure touches, you can measure calls, you can measure email sent, easily measurable in your CRM. Then you're looking at some of the nuances. How many times have you provided information that influenced the scope? How much was incorporated into the scope? Because sometimes they'll take pieces of yours and pieces of somebody else. They'll say, hey, we want the best of both worlds, which is cool because you have some influence, but not necessarily enough influence to be able to get to a win. But if you do all these pieces and you're influencing the scope, you're dealing with the pre-proposal process, where you're talking with these folks and you're getting them juiced up about what you do, you're writing good proposals, because even when you're doing this, you still got to write good proposals, and that leads you to the place where you win. This enables you to expand your presence into the federal government or into new agencies if you're already in the federal government, getting new contacts within those agencies, and the tangential areas that are adjacent to your core offering. So what happens is, in most instances, when you're talking to these folks, it might be a little off-center from what you're offering. But it may be an area that you can say, you know, we've actually been thinking about moving into that space. And I would recommend that if you are getting somebody to ask you a question, help them come up with a solution for that, whether it's you or somebody you know, and being able to help them make their job easier. It goes back to the same thing, is making their job easier. But tangential areas, that, you know, if you write down, if you look at your core, I'm big on core. I'm big on sticking to your core. Don't get out, if you're selling phones, don't all of a sudden start selling pencils and pens. But if you think about the phone sits on a desk, and there's other purchases that are happening that you might be able to help them with that purchase. But if it's close enough, if it's phones and something that would be, you know, a call center application, that's close enough to your core central piece, potentially. So stay true to your core, but be pay attention to the areas that are touching your world. Finally, with your pipeline management, the objective is to get through this whole process and keep getting those referrals to continue to fill that pipeline. And you're going to get referrals both to your program side and your procurement side, right? There's two different sides of the house, and you need to cover both, because if you're not covering both, you're missing out, and you're going to lose something. Let me see something real quick. Let's see. Had to walk away for a few minutes. Would it be possible to review? Yes, we will do. We'll post this to YouTube, and Jim has another great analysis, and that is to go after best value as opposed to dealing with best price. Agree. The biggest thing around this is dedicating resources and measuring your efforts to manage your effectiveness. Yeah, in order to be able to do these things, you can't manage your effectiveness if you haven't measured the efforts of your dedicated resources. Like Jim said, you got to have somebody who knows this industry. It just does not work without it, and it doesn't work for cheap either. So you need to do that so that you can improve your positioning, so that you can ultimately influence that scope. I revolve around this all the time. If people are asking us for scopes, we're in business. We know that we're in the front of that RFP process in order to get ahead of that. Now, we're going to talk about some of the secret sauce that we do here at isiFederal for engaging your federal buyers. We're going to be specific about a very, it's not unique, but it may be unique in the way that we do it as opposed to other folks do it. So you're welcome to use this as a theory, and you're welcome to see how we operate it if you need some additional help and don't have the resources for yourself. This we're going to be talking about as a procurement briefing. Here we have Sally, and she is responsible for buying stuff within, I forget which force she's in. Anyway, she's with the Air Force. Anyway, so this procurement briefing, 4 to 12 touches. This will include your invite. If you know anything about marketing, and building relationships and being able to get people interested, you have to hit people at the right time while they're thinking about what you're doing. So the idea is you need to touch people multiple times for them to just remember that you even live, right? So think about, you know, the girl that you want to go out with or the guy that you want to go out with, creating places where you can, where you become noticed, if you will. So you have your initial invite, you have your second invite, you have your personal phone invite with either talking with them personally and inviting them to this, and then you have your personal invite, email invite that you follow up after the personal conversation or after the message. You can also tell them, hey, I'll sign you up for this if you'd like to post. Reminder that it's happening tomorrow, and then you have the event itself where you're pitching it's not pitching your wares, but it's an event, and then there's an event follow-up email and an event follow-up call. So here we have, here's eight or nine touches right here. So here you're looking at all the pieces where in a very short span of time, we do these all the time, by the way, where we're sending out a procurement invitation, a procurement briefing invitation, and then we're interacting with these people. It gives us a reason to talk to them. Hey, I just want to make sure you got the invite, and that kind of thing. So the procurement briefing itself, you need to understand your market, your audience, what they're looking at. What are their key buying motives? If they're procurement people, then what are their buying motives? Their buying motives are, how can I do this easier? How can I do this quicker? How can I make sure I'm covering my butt? Those are buying motives for them. So you're going to provide a high-level overview because a lot of these people are not interested in what you do. But they do what they're facing. You know, sequestration, big deal for them. So tie in with those. Tie in with their initiatives that are happening. Give them practical examples of what they understand. We're doing a procurement briefing today at 1 o'clock for cloud computing. And these are mostly procurement people. Every once in a while we'll get some IT folks that are in there. But we want the procurement people. Why? Because they hold the dollars. We want to make sure that we're alienating as many competitors as we can from the procurement side. So give them practical examples of what they can understand, how to tell them to watch out for covering their butts, right? You want to make sure, hey, we keep you out of hot water. That's one of the key slides for this is, hey, pay attention to this. Don't get pushed into this because you can get yourself in trouble by buying the wrong thing. Review your procurement vehicles, the way that they can buy from you. If it's GSA, if it's 8A, if you have other vehicles that are there, make sure they have your contact information so they can reach out to you. Give them links to the documents that you're providing them, and the links to, I look at agency initiatives or government-wide initiatives, things that executive orders that are posted out there. I look at those and then I feed those to them because this gives them something to take a look at and read and say, hey, does this really affect my agency or not? So we can do this for you. Just a quick reminder. This is what we do every day. So little plug-in for us. This procurement briefing, here's how it works. You set it up, and you're going to need a GoToMeeting or WebEx, something like this particular interface that we have. Make sure you can record your audio and your screen so that you can roll through these. Make sure that you have a tracking mechanism, some kind of a CRM or Excel spreadsheet. If you don't, you can do it on paper, but it's a little bit more effective when you're dealing with hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people, is to use an electronic form. You're going to need some kind of an email system or program to be able to send these out because some of those you're dealing with thousands of people that are buying what you sell. You have email templates that you need to create, and we can talk a little bit about that in a minute. You need a corporate YouTube account so you can post these things afterwards, and then you can provide links to those things as you do that. And make sure it's verified. This is important because if you're new to YouTube, you can't post anything more than 15 minutes. Well, when you get up to an hour, most of these I do between 20 and 30 minutes, but you still can't post that. So unless you want to break them in parts, you're gonna want to have a verified YouTube account, and make sure whatever you're doing is HD capable, so that you can record in HD, so it looks good. Okay. So the procurement briefing, we want to make sure that it looks what they're used to. Now remember, these folks don't necessarily want super whiz-mo marketing materials. They read courier type all day. So your invite doesn't have to be all that sexy. So you're going to send your invite. Make sure your presentation is geared toward what they normally would see. And your follow-ups are things that they would be normally receiving. So and remember who your audience, that your audience is non-technical. These are not technical people generally, so you're not going to be sending them a whole bunch of bits and bytes of how great all your pieces are. Keep it real high level, and keep it to what they're used to. Now the bonus here is to use terms like government-wide. We have a government-wide purchasing vehicle. Do you have a government-wide purchasing vehicle? Jamie, do GSA schedule holders have a government-wide purchasing vehicle?
They most certainly do. It works nationwide and actually outside the country too.
That's right. So they have a government-wide purchasing vehicle, and if you want to be a little bit more, you can go say it's interagency. We're doing a procurement briefing today where we have, I don't know, 30 or 35 people that are going to be coming. Agencies all over the place, all over the map. No, you know, there's several from VA, and there's several from DOL, and there's several from the Army and the Navy, but they're all coming from different places. Why is that? Because we're not targeting an agency. We're targeting buyers of specific types of purchases. And if we're doing that, they're not just in one agency. They're all over the place. And we want to be able to entice them, and we want to tell them, hey, it's interagency, it's, and then if you could say, if you want to target a specific agency, you could say it's agency-wide or it's agency-focused. We're just talking about FDA. We're just talking about HHS. We're talking about CMS within HHS, right? So you have the ability to be able to choose your audience and choose your focus. Remember, we can do this for you. So this procurement briefing, here's an example of what we just did. We sent out an invitation. It looks like this. This is not sexy, right? It's just text. Nothing sexy about it. But guess what? It looks like what they've seen. So include that it's hosted by you, the date and time. Make sure you have the time zone because these people are all over the world, like Jamie just said. Give them an overview of who should attend, and that should be procurement folks and project managers. So maybe they'll forward it over to the PM side of the house, which they do, by the way. Give them the topic. Give them the registration link, like you just did to sign up for this webinar. Give them the briefing agenda to say, hey, here's how it's going to work. And keep it brief, okay? Give them a topical overview. So you have 5 minutes. Include all the times in that of exactly what you're going to go through. And there'll be your company overview, your agenda items, whatever you're going to be covering. The procurement offerings, which happens to be your contract information. And then you have your question and answer session with your closing remarks coming at the end. Okay? Does that make sense? So when you're running this procurement briefing, actually, here we go. We invite. This is your like script. Hey, Mrs. Smith, this is Joyce with ABC, and I'm calling to invite you to a procurement briefing for next Tuesday at 11 a.m. If you're available for that, we'd love to have you join us, and I hope you can make it. I'll send an email link, or I can sign you up right now. Choice of two. Great approach. Which works better for you? And they may say, oh, you can sign me up. Or they may ask for more information. Can you send me the capability? Well, what is it that we're talking about? I don't even know what you're talking about. So you get an opportunity to be able to engage your people. Now, if you're leaving a message, you can say, hey, feel free to forward it to your department, program folks. Give me a call if you have any questions. Now, there's a core piece about being invited to things that is just generally a good thing. We all like to be invited. We might not all want to go, but we like to be invited. That reminds me of the Seinfeld episode of being invited to a party. So you have your procurement briefing that you're actually running. You develop your presentation. You have full control of the content. You can tell exactly what you want to do. Use a knowledge, this is important, use a knowledge transfer model. Don't sell them. This is not a sales pitch for you to them. Use a knowledge transfer. Here's what's important, because we've been watching, and this is coming down on your head. And these are the things that are happening to you. So don't sell them. Give them content that's important to them for their world. So if it's procurement people, what do they want? They want it to be easy. They want sample scopes of work. They want all kinds of cool stuff that make it easy for them. Present yourself as a source and go-to expert. Very important that you're the source. If they need anything, give me a call. Make sure we'll get it. We'll make it work for you. And it's kind of just like this webinar. Because after this webinar, you might say, hey, you know what? Dave was talking about something that I had some questions about. So you pick up the phone and you call me. Why? I'm setting myself up as the source and the go-to expert for you with your GSA schedule. That's not by accident. That's on purpose. You're here because I invited you, and it's on purpose. It's a good thing. So again, it's about their needs, not about your wants and desires. It's about their needs, focused in on their success and how they can clearly see that you know your stuff, kind of like this webinar. And they can come to the conclusion, hey, these guys are my kind of people. And they remember you, and they start to get to like you. There's a connection. There's a connection that helps you there. Eric has his hand raised. Hang on a second, Eric. You there, bub? Eric? I don't know if you're muted or unmuted. I unmuted you. I saw a question from you earlier. If that's regarding getting the presentation, yes, you can get the presentation. We'll have it, the audio piece too. So then we have the procurement briefing itself. This is the presentation part. You get to the place where you have questions and answers. The power of questions and answers is who's in control of the questions and answers. You are. You have a list of questions that you want to answer, and they favor you specifically. Ask the questions as part of the Q&A, and that gives you the ability to ask for sample scopes of work. So you ask, say, do you have sample scopes? I actually had somebody ask me for this procurement briefing coming up. They're asking for sample scopes of work. Are you kidding me? That is right in our wheelhouse. That's right where we want to be. That's right where you want to be, is in the place where they're asking you for sample scopes of work. And even if they're not, this gives you the ability to say, oh, we were asked. Who asked? Who cares? They asked a sample scope of work. As a matter of fact, it's right in our sweet spot. And this is what we're doing right here. Next thing you know, you have people that are cutting and pasting your sample scope of work into their document because you supplied it to them. Happens all the time. Reminder, we can do this for you. All right, then you have a follow-up email. So you have the ability to recap everything that you just did. You have links to that, to everything that you have, right? People are asking me, where are the links to the audio and the video? People are asking me right now. They're going to ask the same thing for you when you're doing these presentations. So you have the links, you have the presentation video, the PowerPoint of it, your Q&A, your capabilities, throw that in there, right? All the documents that you reviewed, the contract vehicles. You can even send them a copy of your GSA schedule if you want. And most importantly, your sample SOWs. And who does this go out to? Does this go out to the select people that show up? Heck no. It goes out to the whole group of them. It's a beautiful thing. Why? Because this is part of your touches. And guess what? They look at it and say, samples, well, wonder what people were asking. Wonder what kind of questions there were about cloud computing. Wonder what, or data center consolidation. I wonder what the questions they were asking. I wonder if they, and then all of a sudden they said, oh, there's a sample scope of work in that. Woo, great. Let me download that sample scope of work. Let me download that information so I can incorporate that into my operation. Maybe there's some certifications that I wasn't even thinking of. And who fed it to them? You did. You got it to them. You're giving them the information that they need. And then you get the opportunity to follow up by phone to say, hey, were you able to post for that thing? Did you get the links in the docs? Probably not. Wasn't paying attention. Do you have anything else that you need from me right now? Nope. Okay, fine. But I tell you what, you just followed up and you remembered. They'll probably remember you. Okay, great. I'll give you a call in a few weeks to check in as usual. So what have you done? You've done everything. You've touched them 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 times, whatever it is, and you get to a place of great. I'll give you a call in a few weeks as usual. Setting it up that you are going to put them on you're putting them on notice that you're following up with them. You got the ball in your court. Very, very important. Don't give it to them. They might say, I'll call you when I need you. No, 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 no. I'm not giving you that permission. I'm calling you in a couple weeks because that's what we do. I'll follow up with you as usual, okay? Great. Sure, fine. Done. I use the phrase, hey, what else do you need from me besides me getting off the phone so you can get some real work done? Always gets a chuckle? No, it's about all I need. Great. I'll talk to you in a few weeks as usual. Great. Thanks, Dave. Click. Clockwork. Clockwork. Organization. Follow-up. Making sure this stuff is trackable so that you can do this. But you do this right, and they know who you are. They know what you do. They consider you an expert. They have sample scopes of work that favor your organization. They're glad to know you. You have helped them learn something new, and you've made them feel valued. When you do these things, when you're thinking about them in their world, how to make them feel, not how you can pitch them the best way. It's how to make them feel valued. This is a core need, core requirement for you and your business development efforts. Because easy is good for them. You've helped them make it easy, and you've helped them feel valued. Really, really important stuff. Almost everybody that you know is not performing in this fashion. Is not performing in this fashion. They're after, here's what I have. They show up and throw up, and they give them all the information. And people can't process all that stuff. They just can't do it. But when you do it this way, you make connections. You make them feel valued. You make them feel important. And the best part is, it doesn't even matter if they show up for the briefing. Because almost all your follow-up, we sent out 5,000 invites to the procurement briefing on cloud computing. Now, we've talked to 100 people, 30, 35 posting. What part of that isn't great? You're touching 5,000 people. And some of them are asking, what do you do this? That's because we're at fiscal year end. And this is a beautiful thing because you've done these. You've invited them, your second invite, personal call, personal invite, email invite, a reminder. You have the event, the recap email with the links, follow-up call, and a follow-up recap mail with links. You've touched them 9 times and informed them that, hey, I'll talk to you in a couple of weeks as usual. Set them up so that you are in the regular food chain. Make sense? Any questions about how this process works? Let's see. And I'm getting to, John, I'm getting to the people. I can't unmute you because you don't have a microphone on. So we could talk about you. Anybody want to talk about any of these pieces before I move on to how we find the right people? I don't think so. It's hard to tell when there's, I think there's no new questions. And reminder, we can do this for you as part of your proactive strategy, okay? And when you do all this to gain influence, to get ahead of the RFP process, to leverage the relationships, to find the winnable opportunities, and win that federal business. That's why we're doing this. We're not doing this for health. We do it. I do it. I love to meet people, and I love to build relationships. Love it. But ultimately, we got to win business for our clients. We got to be able to develop those relationships so we can get ahead of that curve. So the question is, chances are you're not doing this, right? You're probably missing out on this particular process. You might know pieces of this, but you haven't been doing it all because you don't know who the folks are. We have some of those things. People buy from people they like. You need to find the right people, get them to like you. You need to know who needs to like you first, right? You need to know that to get in front of the RFP to win the business. So what you need right now is you need step 1 to be proactive, to put yourself in control of an expected occurrence, which is September 30th, so that you can be anticipatory to get in front, get in there in front of those folks by providing them, and you can initiate the change to do what works. You don't have to follow the same rules that everybody else is following that are failing. You don't have to do that through implementing this process. And the process starts with finding your market sweet spot, and this is pure D, 100% unabashed about what we do and how we can help to start you. We really didn't know about this market, gave us exactly what we needed so we can identify our sweet spot. That's one of our clients. So you find your market sweet spot. What do we need in order to be able to do that for you? We need to know how do your customers buy now, who are your primary competitors, and what happens before they buy from you. Is there a sequence of events? Like if you're, for instance, you're an electrician. Well, obviously, you have a general contractor, you have engineering, you have an architect, you have permitting for what's happening on property type things. So we can look at the food chain to say, where are the feeders for you? Who are the people that are responsible for doing those things? Chances are the same people that are responsible for doing your electrical work. So the size of contracts, your smallest, your largest, and your average, because this will tell us where the band is and who's buying those types of contracts. And specifically, we look at the people that are buying. It's all about the people. Here we have Delaria, who 90 contracts for $12.3 million. My kind of lady. Largest was 4.6. Take those out. You got 89 contracts that are generally in the neighborhood of about $7.5 million. So you divide that out, a lot of good-sized projects. We have somebody else, Carmelita, 40 contracts for $1.7 million. My kind of lady. Why? Because all of them are less than 100 grand, and anything less than 150 grand is supposed to be set aside for small business anyway. So this is a sweet spot. With the U.S. Marshal Service, flies under the radar in some. Most people know that because of the movies and stuff. But a lot of folks aren't concentrating on the Marshal Service because they're just not showing up on your radar. But this gets put on your radar. Some of the small people like Northrop Grumman, best intelligence we've ever seen. We hate when people talk about us like that. They know things that we simply can't find on our own, and that's the truth. I've been looking for this for years because we do business development, and I'm not wasting my time on burning my resources for something that doesn't work. So who's buying direct from your direct competitors? Let's take a look at this. If you see somebody, Cynthia, that bought 151 contracts from your direct competitor, and something comes out from Cynthia, chances are it's going to your competitor, right? So we know what to look for. We know that they've bought $389 million from your competitor. Pretty deep relationship. We have the agency, we have the phone number, and we have the email. We can market to these people. We can get them in tight. Maybe Cynthia retires. Maybe she moves on to another place, leaving a gaping hole for the competition. We've all seen this where we have change and we have gaping holes in that. And again, questions on this particular piece. I'm going to open it up, and then we got to get this done pretty much. Let's see real quick. So how do you know that these people are, John says, how do you know these people are the people that we're after? Great question. Appreciate that. You set me up twice now, John. Here's a story from William Scotsman. They have 25% of the market. 25% of the federal market for what they sell. What we did is we gave them visibility and they found out that a lot of the stuff that they were selling were going to 8As. Well, if that's the case, they're not 8A. They're not even small. They got 80 branches for $50 million annually with the federal government, and a lot of their contracts are under the radar. They do office leasing, mobile office buildings. So they're there for a few months, maybe a year or whatever, but a lot of those are flying under the $25,000 radar because they're doing it as a monthly expense or something like that. They don't know exactly how long they're going to need it. So, some of those are even the FEMA type trailers, right? So here you have 80% are less than $25,000, never hit Fed Biz Ops. But they were going out to 8As because that was easy procurement. So they're taking all their 80 branches and building affiliates within each state with 8As so that they can start to funnel that business through the 8As. They're going to capture more than 25% of that marketplace because they're implementing strategies. The biggest thing is 100% clear visibility into how these federal buyers are buying what they sell. Doesn't matter what you sell. You can sell trailers, you can sell IT, you can sell dental, you can sell anything. Whatever it is you sell. The biggest thing is to know your marketplace and how that works. So we'll help you find your sweet spot, and this package gives you access to your key contacts who buy your stuff. These are the people that are buying what you sell. Your competitors' contacts, real important, so you can develop a strategy against each individual competitor. You can find the under-the-radar contracts. We go back 5 years, and you say, oh, wow, that was one that's going to be coming out that isn't hitting on input or any of the other pieces. Why is that? Because not everything hits there either. They're not monitoring all the things. They just monitor some of them. They give the breakdown of agency spending, the primes in their contacts, and the recommended action steps for your company as it applies to your federal marketplace. It's 90% of your federal strategy. You just got to figure out how to apply those resources to do that. And the sooner you move, the sooner you know about winnable opportunities that are under the radar that never hit FBO or the high-dollar databases like Input. I mean, that's like, I know companies that are spending more than $20,000 a year on Input alone. So it fits your market sweet spot. That's the most important thing. And we can be competitor-specific to how you're operating. I know we're going over time, and I apologize for that. Just want to make sure that you knew what we had here. So people buy from people you like. You find the people who like you, who need to like you, get them to like you to get in front of the RFP. And the best time is whenever you say go, because you need to do it over the course of the next, certainly 41 days. It's too late if you're not doing it now. But we can still get you in place for next year for that. So you can save $1,000 now. It's regularly $4,500. It's $3,500 bucks. and everybody that we do this with say it's the best $3,500 they've spent. So we have captureplanning.com and Prop Library for Carl. He never did post, so you can give him grief for not being there. You can get a discount from Carl. And Jamie's here with GSA Proposal. If you have anything that needs to be quickly updated for this fiscal year, I recommend you do it because it takes time. Get in touch with Jamie. He can help you with that. Jamie, you have any parting remarks? I know we have a couple of GSA schedules that are retiring or they're limiting something. I don't know. Tell us about that.
There are a few schedules that GSA has indicated they're going to be shutting down for new entries. They are, and it's supposed to be, and again, there are things that go on in the marketplace, and you get insight from insiders at GSA that they have indicated there were 4 schedules that were going to be closing down for new entries this year. So if you've been on the bubble and you're thinking, gosh, should I get a schedule or not, you need to get your foot in the door because there are only 4 of them. Only 4 of the schedules are slated for closing October of this year. But whatever the case, if you don't have your schedule yet, or if you need your schedule to be updated, you need to make sure that it's current. But of those 4 schedules, the one is a Schedule 73, the other is 81 ID. Not to go along in the tooth here, just because I know we're upside down on time. Also Schedule 56. But if you have additional
what are those so that they know kind of what is Schedule 56 and the other ones?
56 is buildings and building materials and supplies and services, which encompasses quite a bit. And they had indicated they were going to take this a direction of closing for new entries and working off the existing schedule holders to try and be the source component for taking care of all of their needs. So if you're doing that kind of service or offering those kind of products, you want to get your foot in the door because the gate's supposed to close in October. That's the latest info we have from GSA. And sometimes they'll make last-minute policy changes, but at the moment they're telling us the door's closing in October. So if you're doing those kind of services or have been and haven't been on schedule yet for that, the time to get going is really right now.
Yeah, you better be doing it right now.
But any questions at all about GSA, certainly feel free to give me a ring. We're happy to talk about that and any needs that you may have or even just general questions. We welcome the opportunity to help anyone out there as they're trying to move forward with their purchasing vehicle being the GSA schedule.
Sure. And that's really important. And one of the things that there's a question here, will you provide an example contract vehicle? And it really depends on what you're doing, but GSA schedules are a vehicle. That's a contract vehicle. It's a contract that you've made with GSA to create a relationship between you and the government that gives them an avenue to be able to purchase from you. It doesn't give you anything but a menu of services that you give to them. But GSA is an example of a contract vehicle, and there's like bazillions of those. I'm sure Jamie can send you one or a link to one of somebody. So give me a shout. The Schedule 73 close in October.
Yes, it is. Yes, 73 is slated to close in October.
There you go, Jim. Are you on schedule? Hang on a second, because that's Jim. Kyle is asking another question. Oh man, this thing's kicking my butt for this thing on the right-hand side. Hang on one second, Jim. I'm coming to you. Hey, Jim, you there?
Yes, sir. How are you?
I'm good. Now, do you have a Schedule 73 now?
Yes, we do, and in fact, we were invited and are preparing our paperwork and necessarily our electronic paperwork for submission. But I just wanted to make sure that was set out to the rest of the audience that Schedule 73 does close this October. Also, they've introduced several additional requirements, and this will be for I'm sorry. That's what happens when you turn 65. Everything goes down.
Hey, man, don't take the 65. I tell you right now.
Yeah, it's just hard to do. But no, what happened? They have come up with a requirement for certain parts of the schedule to basically be on the blanket purchase agreement. And once you have understood that that BPA is now going to be segmented strictly to the folks over in the handicapped area, and I'm sorry to use that term, but that's the one I can think of. So that unique thing, if you're not tied into like Lighthouse for the Blind or other ones that are now going to be strictly under those areas, you will not be able to bid on those blanket purchase agreements like we've been doing in the past. So you need your alignment.
Yeah, I think that's great advice again, Jim, and that is that there are changes that constantly occur, and it happened with the office supply with FSSI, where you all of a sudden you were out of the loop, and if you didn't have a relationship with the BPA holders, you were in trouble. So absolutely great advice that Jim has for both developing relationships internally with the federal government, because that's where the money's coming from, but also looking at what's happening in the realm of your world that directly impacts your ability to sell, and building relationships with other companies so that you can get in the revenue stream as well. Good stuff, Jim. Man, you got to come on more often there, brother.
I wanted to mention what I do for my clients. My team is a consulting group, and so we do this for a number of folks, and we actually do all of the GSA work for them. It's just the easiest way, and of course, we don't sign anything. We present it to the owners of the different companies, and we explain to them that if you don't understand this, now's the time to learn, because you will be held accountable.
Absolutely. That's positively the truth. So, Jim, thanks again for being with us. I'm going to get to the last couple pieces. Next one is September 17th, and it will be the last webinar for fiscal year 2013. We'll be talking about the final aspects of monitoring for winnable opportunities, what to expect, quick turnaround, quick quotes and bids. We're seeing a lot of that now with GSA eBuy and all the other places. You're starting to see compress. It's not 30 days anymore, is it? It's down to 2 weeks, some of them a week, some of them days, in being able to turn those around. And you'll get to the place where it will be a day, 24 hours. So being prepared and staying connected, because at the end of the year, you've got to make sure that you're able to answer those questions and watch for those opportunities, because the last few days of September are crossing right over into weekends. And if you're not paying attention, you could lose it. You can absolutely miss. So we don't want you to miss. Real quick, there were a couple of folks that were asking some questions. Eric was asking some questions, and there were pieces in there. There's another one that's popping up right here, and I'll get to that. Yeah, I can't do it today, Jim, because it's happening at 1 o'clock, and I've got to get my act together. I can't invite you to the procurement briefing today, but I will absolutely make sure that we stay connected and do that. Shoot me over your contact information to dlowe@isiFederal.com, and I'll make sure. If I can get you in today, I'll do it, but I can't promise that I'll get it in. But any last, we really went long, and I apologize for that, but it was good information. And I really appreciate you guys being here. This next session is not July 16th. Some moron that created that didn't update it. That would be yours truly. And Carl, reach out to Capture Plan. Jamie, thanks again for being there. Always a pleasure. And I appreciate you guys.